Hey, for the last few weeks I've been messing around with this new refrigerator freezer from BougeRV. And first of all, it's got plenty of capacity, and it's also really affordably priced at between $300 and $350. So for those two reasons alone, it's definitely worth taking a look at this guy. But it's also got a couple of other unique features that really caught my attention. First of all, it's got a different shape to it. It's taller, it's skinnier, so I could actually squeeze it into spots where some of the other portable units just won't fit. And the real cool feature is that it's got two separate sections in here. It's got a refrigerator section and a freezer section, so you know, it can function as a refrigerator and a freezer at the same time. So I wanted to see how well that system actually worked, and you know, could I keep some ice cold beer in here at the same time, keep some ice cream and other frozen stuff frozen solid. Well, that's what I wanted to put to the test, and you know, just see how that worked and do some power comparisons and share some general thoughts about this particular unit. So let's get into it. Now, after taking it out of the box and everything, there really isn't much to do to get this thing set up. Now, I did have to install the handles because they came with the handles detached, so it fit nicely in the box. But they gave you a nice little Allen wrench tool to put the handles on, and they're really sturdy. In fact, they've really got a good spring in there. You know, I didn't have to even crack open the manual to power it up for the first time. You know, it comes with an AC cord as well as a DC cord if you want to plug it into a portable battery bank or plug it into your car or vehicle DC port. So I just went ahead and used the AC for the first time, and without even cracking the manual open, I was able to get it all set up. And the nice thing about it is they even include a sticker here right by the controls that tells you what everything does. So you know, there really isn't much to learn here. You essentially just power it on, and then you can adjust the temperature using the up and down arrows. And like many of the others, it has an eco mode, and so you just choose the mode that you want. The eco mode just uses less power, so I just went ahead with the max power to start with. And the final thing I had to do to set it up was to switch the default temperature reading from Celsius to Fahrenheit. To do that, it's really easy. You just press down the up and down arrow at the same time, and then it'll toggle between Celsius and Fahrenheit. So again, that's really all I really had to do to power this up and get it running for the first time. So let's do a test, the ice cream beer test to start with. I've got frozen ice cream in the freezer section. I've got cold beer and some other drinks in the refrigerator section. And I want to do a max power test for 24 hours. And I'm plugged into AC power. I'm going to measure the power consumption through this 24-hour period. And I have a little thermometer here, so to just see what the ambient temperature is. It's 72 degrees right now. I'm hoping it'll just kind of stay between 70 and 80 degrees. And I have the temperature on the cooler set to -4 degrees, which is the low end, so it's the coldest that this thing will get. So I have it set to -4, and I have the eco mode turned off. So I want to go at max power to see how much power we use in 24 hours. And I want to make sure our beer doesn't freeze and that the ice cream stays nice and hard and frozen. All right, so the beer and the ice cream are in good shape. We used about 900 watt hours, so about 900 watts of power in a 24-hour period. And that equates to about 67 amp hours if you were to just compare it to a battery. So let's do the same test, except we're going to switch it to eco mode. We're expecting to use less power in a 24-hour period. Now the documentation for this unit says it's about 15% increase or decrease in power utilization. So let's see where it ends up just doing the same test, same ice cream, same beer for 24 hours. Okay, it's been a few days since I started that test, and some unexpected stuff has happened. But I do want to tell you first off that after the first 24 hours running on eco mode, that the power consumption came in at 710 watts, which is definitely lower than the 900 or so on max mode. So with the eco mode enabled, you know, I got a benefit or an efficiency benefit of about 20%. The documentation says it should be about 15%. So that's promising right there. And the ice cream and the drinks were still seemed to be at the right temperature. Ice cream was frozen hard, and the drinks were seemed to be nice and ice cold. But I was working on some other stuff, so I just let it run for another day or so at that same temperature. And when I came back and popped the lid, you know, a day or so later, I had a bit of a surprise inside. Oh. That's right. Boom! I got it all cleaned up, and it got me thinking about what is the right temperature setting if I wanted to set it up for this dual mode. So I want to keep stuff from getting frozen in the refrigerator section while still keeping the freezer section nice and deep frozen if possible. So I did a little bit more testing, and what I found was that that there's a temperature difference of about 30 degrees between the refrigerator section and the freezer section. So in order to keep the drinks from getting below freezing, I found out that the best temperature setting was 5 degrees Fahrenheit. So that would keep that freezer section at 5 degrees, and it kept the refrigerator section in the low 30s, but not below freezing. So about 34, 35, 36 degrees. So I ran that for a couple days just to test it, and that seemed to be the right setting. Now powering this from like a 12 volt DC source is probably going to be what we're going to do most of the time. It's a portable freezer. So we're going to be in an RV, we're going to be in a van, a vehicle of some sort, in a camper, or maybe we'll be plugging it into a portable battery power station. And it's going to have one of these plugs in it. So it turns out that the DC mode is actually the more efficient way to power this cooler, because it runs on DC power natively, and it's going to use less power when we run it off of DC. Because when we actually run it off of AC, it actually has to convert that AC power to DC power in order to run the fridge. So whenever possible, use a DC option if you have it over the AC option. Now if you're using it on a car and you want to plug it into your dashboard while you're driving or when you're parked, and you don't want to drain your car battery, you want to pay attention to the battery protection setting here on the back. It's got a high, medium, and low setting with different voltage levels where it'll cut off before your battery voltage level gets too low and you drain your battery. So the high setting or medium setting is probably what you want to set it to if you're plugging it into your car battery. But if you're powering it from a portable power station, you're probably going to want to leave it on the low setting, because you don't really worry so much about those getting too low. It'll automatically cut off when it is pretty much dead. But let's take a look at the power difference just running it off of DC in eco mode, which is probably what we're going to be using most of the time when we're camping. And so DC power eco mode for 24 hours, just powered from a portable power station using that DC plug. Now remember when we ran the same test using AC power on eco mode at that max temperature setting, which was -4 degrees, it came in at like 710 watts was the total power consumption. All we did was switch that from AC power to DC power, and we already cut that down to 568 watts total now. So you can see that it's definitely more efficient to run it on DC power versus AC power. Well, for $300 to $350, I really don't have a lot of negative stuff to say about this. It seems to work the way that it's supposed to. And you know, the dual mode operation works pretty good, you know, as long as you have the temperature set correctly. You know, it's really easy to use. You can even get a cover for it. I think there's a cover that you can get that, you know, just wraps around this whole thing, protects it, and actually will probably give you a little bit more efficiency by just, you know, being able to insulate it a little bit better. There's a couple things I think could be improved, however. One of those being the location of the controls versus the location of the opening. You know, if I have it against the wall, it's kind of cumbersome to use, or if I have it tucked away in a hole, in maybe a compartment or some sort of enclosure in my RV or van, then that becomes an issue because I won't be able to really access the controls very well unless I pull the whole thing out or mount it or slide it in somewhere sideways. So that's an issue. The other issue I have is with the lid, the hinge on the lid. It seems a little bit loose. Could be firmed up a little bit to improve this operation. Sometimes when I close it like that, it doesn't close all the way. You know, that time it worked, but you know, once it's closed, it's pretty snug. It's pretty firm, but it's just when it's open, there seems to be a lot of play in that. So I think you could improve the hinge a little bit. So yeah, take a look at the hinge on the lid, BougeRV. That would be a good improvement, as well as the location of things here. If they could be on the same side, the control panel and the opening, that would be a big improvement in my view. But overall, I definitely think it's worth the money, and I want to thank BougeRV for providing this and allowing me to use it and test it and share my thoughts. So I hope you got something out of this review. If you did, give it that thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video. So take care.